Welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. Once again, we are here today, and today we have another show lined for y'all. Today we have our special guest, Mark Motsenbocker. He is an author of Searching for Father, a moving exploration of grief, healing, and the quiet mentors we meet along the way. After losing both parents at a young age, especially the absence of his father, Mark began a journey not just to understand what was lost, but to discover what could still be found. This book isn't just about a personal boy, it's about all of us, about the unseen threads that connect us all, about how a gesture, one moment of kindness can be something that can leave a major impact on one's life. We all need mentors. And when it comes to finding a father figure, this is going to be a powerful story that I think will enforce what it means to have a human connection. So without further ado, I'm going to land this plane and welcome our guest to the show, Mark. How you doing today, man?
Good, man. I really appreciate the opportunity to be with you. You know, I spent time reading through all your accolades and marvelous reviews. And to me, they speak wisdom, authenticity, and consistency. And I'm telling you, those are character traits that I highly respect and value. So I am honored to be here with you today, and I mean that wholeheartedly. So excited to be here.
Definitely appreciate that. And I know you have the same similar traits. So let's start from the beginning. When you think about what you had to go through at a young age, share with the audience a little bit about the origin story of your earliest memory of life being changed, to say the least.
Yeah, so I was 8 years old. It was December 28, 1964, just 3 days after Christmas. My father was a minister, and him and my mom went to a ministerial dinner. And about 15 minutes after they drove away, they were both killed tragically in a car accident. And a little earth-shattering. I have 4 siblings, so I have a brother 10 years older than me, a brother 8 years older than me, a brother 5 years older than me, and then I had a little sister 5 years younger than me. But, you know, it was a tough moment in time, simply due to the fact that nobody gave us any counseling. Nobody sat with us and talked about loss and grieving. And I was extremely blessed. We were extremely blessed that my mother's mother, her name was Dorothy Hanson, my grandma, she took all 5 of us in. And at 64 and widowed, and she was an amazing person. That's all I can tell you. But so I give you a glimpse of what I was going through, because I thought for the longest time I was really caught in a bad dream. My mind was just kind of saying, this can't be. I can't not have a mom and dad. I mean, how does that happen, right? And so fast forward, going into my next year of school, I'm now 9, and my grandmother decides to clean out my drawers in my dresser and put some new clothes in there for school. So we go through the shelves, 1, 2, 3. We get to the 4th shelf, and there's a couple sweaters in there. And she moves the sweaters, and at the bottom of the drawer, there's every lunch bag I had received from her the year before. She made my lunch every day, wrote my name on it. Every bag was tenderly folded, and they were all there. My grandma said, "What is this? What?" And I looked at her and I said, "Grandma, if you die, I have nothing to remember you by, and I need something." So that was the clue to my grandma that I was still struggling really bad, and so she just she gave me everything she had. She was a giver. You know, we grew up in a neighborhood where my grandmother wasn't the oldest lady in the neighborhood, but everybody called her grandma. Everybody. I don't even know if anybody knew what her real name was, because she was grandma. But so she helped me get through that start. But then what happened for me was my dad's best friend lived about 3 blocks away from us. And his name's John Hager, but he becomes Uncle John to me. And he works with wood. He's a Finnish carpenter. And so I go over to his house almost daily, and he lets me work in his garage and help and measure things and do some fine sanding. And he invests a lot in me and helps me to understand that life is all about choices. and you need to make the right choices, right? So I spent considerable time a few years ago in Proverbs doing a study. I for the last 15 years, I've done a men's Bible study at our church once a month. And in Proverbs, I came across a verse that I think just really kind of is the touchstone about what he was trying to share with me. His whole thing was Proverbs 4:23, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. And so choices are all about who we become and what we do. I'm a big believer in habits. I have 4 kids. They're great kids. They're all married. I've got 11 grandchildren, 6 and under. So we're blessed in just untold ways. But I was really big in trying to help them grow up in life to understand, the only place success comes before work is in the dictionary. I'm big on quotes because they stick, right? They help you kind of think through things. But I came to that conclusion early on that really guarding your heart was important. I had 3 older brothers. They all chose to go a different path than I went. But I do have a vivid memory of dedicating my life to Christ with my father, because he was a minister. We had a VBS, and there was a big, huge 9-foot cross in the front of the church, and they gave you these big, huge train nails to spike into it. And I distinctly remember doing that with my dad. And that's really a blessing to have. But that created in me through Uncle John, the impetus to say, all right, I have choices to make. I can tell you one thing. I'd seen my brother give my grandma so much grief. I did not want to hurt her. And so I was really a straight-laced kid. I didn't mess around. I didn't do anything stupid. I didn't because I didn't want to make my grandmother grieve about those kind of things. And Uncle John really helped set me on the path to that. So there's 26 men in the book that I talk about. And I really believe, in the book I talk about, you have to embrace change. That's an inevitable piece of life, right? And so how do you do that, right? We talk about the constants of life and how there's so many things that have to be consistent. But I can tell you, I've learned from all the men, what got me where I am today is not going to get me where I need to be tomorrow, because life is full of change, right? And so I think together we can sift through the pain and wonder and love, but it's up to us to kind of continuously and intentionally create those connections. So I was fortunate, 26 men, one today that I still meet with about every 6 weeks for lunch. He's just a great man. He's got a golden heart. He's committed in everything he does. He's a great role model for me, even in my older age. He's in his late 80s, and he's still working because he's passionate about what he does. So I think about all these people who gave to me, right? And kind of just to give you some backdrop to my thought process around this. Tony Dungy wrote, "Fatherlessness is a silent epidemic. It doesn't just leave children without a dad, it leaves them without a part of themselves." And that's a true fact, I think, for both men and women. I've known women who've even had dads, but there's no relationship there. There's no connectivity. And so we all have this need, I think, and I do believe it's kind of a God-given need. And I believe a big piece of that is, God is our father, right? God's a father to the fatherless. And the Bible says that he'll take care of you even though you're in need. So these men all come into my life at different times and provide something for me that nobody else could provide. And that's the genius of God working within what happens every day as we walk through life. And so I can give you the first one to really have a huge impact on me was Coach Holland. And I was skinny. If I turned sideways and stuck out my tongue, I looked like a zipper, man. There was just nothing to me. And so I would go to PE in junior high. I was the last guy picked every time in PE. And I never played because they'd look at me and they'd say, "You're going to get killed if you go out there." I said, "It's basketball. How could I get killed?" Right? But no, look at you. You can't, And so my second year of junior high, Coach Holland came up to me one day and he said, "Hey, I've got something for you special this year. Been thinking about you." And he says, I'm going to get the game started. And he takes me out to the field. He's got like 3 golf clubs in his hand. He's got a bag of balls. He dumps the balls on the ground. He gives me some general instruction about how to hit a ball. He says, okay, let me see you hit. And I hit. And he laughs and he says, okay, that really wasn't a hit. So he spends maybe 10 minutes with me, and then he leaves me. And he says, hit the balls wherever you want to hit them. Just bring them all back when you come. All right. So, okay. So he starts, I go to his office when class starts. I get the clubs, I get the balls, I go out to the field. He comes out and we talk. He makes comments. He gives encouragement. Then at the end of the year, I get called to the office one day, and here's Coach with the vice principal. And he says, hey, we bought you a set of clubs because I think you have a lot of promise. And I was blown away. I mean, I was just totally stunned, right? So I take those clubs home. He meets with me at a 9-hole chip and putt, sets me up with the owner, knows him, a couple of guys there that work there. And I go every day. I throw my paper routes. I have 2 paper routes. I throw my paper routes, and then I go to the golf course. And that's all I do. I chip and putt. Older guys come by and they say, hey, you're doing pretty good. You want to play golf with us today? And they pay for me to play. The guy there lets me take the balls and put them in baskets, and he lets me play occasionally. Long story short, I come back in the fall. Coach comes up to me and says, how'd you do? I said, I think I did pretty good. I don't know, but he says, well, let's go out today. Brings a set up jump ropes, right? And he builds these boxes, 30 yards out, 40, 60 yards out, 90 yards out. And then he drops 6 balls and he says, let me see how many of the 6 you can get in the first box. And they all bounced in there, but only 4 stayed. And he looks at me and he goes, that's pretty impressive. I said, well, it's pretty close though too. I said, it's further out. He laughed. Anyway, I hit him, and the 90-yard one, I think I got 2 in it, and some didn't even come close, right? But he looked at me and said, you have the potential to be great. I can't tell you what that feels like to a kid who has nobody that says that to him. They just, you just don't get that experience. So he taught me all about determination, all about habits. You reap what you sow, you develop this stuff. And so that's the essence of what happens, story after story after story. And they come at different times in my life. And I think really people sensed in me that I had the desire, but I had to have the need. Somebody had to come along. So it's teachers, it's coaches, it's some neighbors that I had. It's bosses that I had as I moved on into my career, and I had people come into my life and say, I'm impressed with you, so let's see what you can really do. And then they provided all the encouragement and all the resources. I think, though, as I wrote the book, one of the things that I began to feel was that it was important for people to understand you need to give in life, right? So I did a big Bible study a number of years ago, going through Genesis, and came to a conclusion after the beginning of Genesis that God created everything in the earth for us, and everything gives, right? So the vegetation of the world, the fruits and the vegetables, they don't consume what they provide. The snow and the rain and the rivers, they don't consume the waters they need. The other elements of our world that exist, the fragrance of the flowers, they don't consume that. The sun and the moon, they don't use up the light, right? Everything God created was for us, and it all gives. And then it dawned on me, Jesus says, for God so loved that he gave. So major component of God is love. Second major component is give. And I do believe Proverbs 11:25 says, a generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. And so I do believe that there's this notion there that emphatically says, the more you give, the more he gives back to you. That this is really kind of a divine abundance thing. And so now saying all that, I really kind of come to some really, I think, maybe epic conclusions, right? So we don't live on the earth. We live with it, in it, and through it. So God creates this interdependence, which is not optional. And really, it's not our task to conquer nature, but to learn to live and work in harmony with its generosity. The earth doesn't give to us because we deserve to. It gives to us because giving is what life does. So, I think the value and benefit of all that is that we need to kind of come to a conclusion and understanding that God designed us to be givers. That's the true design. Christ came and gave his life, right? And so let me just bear with me here, but imagine how good our world would be if everybody gave. Just imagine what that would do to change the dynamics of every day for everybody. So I make it my intent. I wake up every morning kind of with the desire and intent of how do I give? What do I do to give to others? Because I think it needs to be habitual. For me, I'm big on habits. I have a whole series of habits every day that I do. When I get up, when I go to bed, what I do, what I eat, how I sleep, my exercise, my time with God starts every morning with him. I finish every day with him. It's all about the habits, right? And I say all that because greatness or excellence isn't an act. It's a habit. What we do regularly, like what Christ did regularly, right? He regularly went away from the disciples and spent time with the Lord. It was his habit to do that. It was his intent to do that. And so this whole process that we have of giving, I think, is the benefit. And the other side of it is we need to be receivers too, because people can give to you, and you can shun that giving, and you miss out then on the great opportunity. Winston Churchill said, "To each there comes a time." To each, there comes in their lifetime a special moment when they are figuratively tapped on the shoulder and offered the chance to do an incredibly special thing, unique to them and fitted to their talents. What a tragedy if that moment finds them unprepared or unqualified for what could have been their finest hour. And I say that and share that because I believe I was with these men in their finest hour. They were there to give me the essence of what God knew I needed. And it was truly valuable. It was just priceless, right? I mean, and so, how does the giving work for people? That's a question people ask me sometimes. So what does that look like, Mark? I give you a quick example. I lived in a neighborhood. All the homes were set 75 yards from the street. 75 yards, that's 3/4 of a football field. Beautiful neighborhood. Big lawns and lush, just magnificent. And I thought it was pretty cool. I will tell you, the very first time it snowed there, and I had to shovel 75 yards of a 2-wide driveway, I didn't quite have the same opinion about how cool it was, right? Because that was a lot of work and a lot of labor. But I live in a cul-de-sac. There's 6 homes in the cul-de-sac, and got to know everybody fairly well. I come home one evening. It's winter. It's cold. I know the couple across the street. They don't have any kids at home. He's away on business. Her trash barrels are out in the street. And I decide I'm going to stop and take her barrels up. So I take her barrels up. I get back in my car and I start driving towards my house. And I notice somebody else's barrels are out. And I thought, all right, well, you're going to do for one, do for other. Yeah, man. So I pull over. I take their barrels up. I go up in my driveway. No thought about that. No. But the next week I pulled in and I saw some barrels out. And I thought, yeah, okay. So I made that my habit. I took everybody's barrels in. If they would have all left their barrels out, I'd have taken them all in, which could have taken me like 25 minutes. It's 30 minutes. My wife's like, what are you doing? I'm taking barrels in, right? So fast forward about 7 weeks, the Christmas get-together for all the couples happens, and the real brouhaha of that whole conversation is who's taking the trash barrels in? Of course, people look at me and I say, nobody's taking my trash barrels in. What do you mean somebody's taking your trash barrels in? And they're like, yeah, somebody's taking our trash barrels in. It's beautiful, but you know who it is. I said, nobody's taking mine in. That's all I can tell you, right? So somebody was then on the hunt to find out who it was. About 2 weeks later, I'm away on business. I call in the evening to talk to my wife, and she says, hey, somebody took our trash barrels up. What do you think? I go, Well, that's kind of strange. Now, who else is somebody else, giving, right? So here it comes full circle, right? Fast forward, then another 3 weeks, I come home one day. My wife says, look at what I found in the mailbox. And it's a card. You open the card and said, thanks for being the trash guy. You are really special. And there's a gift card in there. I'm thinking, I'm not doing this for anything. I just want to give. I just want to love my neighbor as myself. That was the whole premise behind what would I want somebody to do for me that I can do for them. So the practicality of that is just that, right? Recently, I'm walking down the street. As I'm walking down the street, I'm watching this girl. She's got a flat tire. And she's not trying to loosen the bolt on the tire. She's trying to tighten it up. And so I stop and I say to her, it would work a lot quicker if you tried to pull the other way. She goes, what do you mean? I said, you're going the wrong direction. So then I walked over and I showed her. She must have been pushing on this one nut for about 10 minutes because it took me forever to get it loose. But I got it loose and she was like, oh my word, I was going the wrong way. I loosened another one. I looked at her. I said, so that's how it works. I said, do you want me to help you? She goes, oh no, I called my boyfriend already. But what you did is beautiful because he now won't think I'm so stupid. Or I said, well, I didn't say you're stupid. She goes, no, I know. You're very nice. Thank you so much. So, but you can leave. My boyfriend's coming and it'll be a better thing for us. I said, okay. So it's just those kind of things where life presents every day an opportunity for you to be giving. It does. And I had somebody say, what do you do with homeless people? I said, well, I don't do it all the time, but for a time, because I traveled all around the city in which I work pretty regularly, about gift cards to McDonald's or Carl's Jr. or whatever. And when somebody said, I need money, I'd put the window down and they'd say, here, this will get you $5 worth of food. And they were appreciative. I think they would have preferred cash, to be honest, but I said, it's usable today, tomorrow, whenever you want to use it. It doesn't ever go bad, right? So I think there's opportunities to do that. But I think it needs to be more intentional. I'm not so much of random acts of kindness. I believe giving is a thing that you need to think through and do purposefully, because that's what God wants us to do. He wants us to be intentional in what we do. I kind of rambled a lot of different directions there from the start, but that's kind of the essence of what I believe is really important for us. I think the other thing that is profound for everybody to think about, I do believe we live more in a meism society. I think it's a lot of I, me, and mine in our world today. And that's a generalized statement that I don't like to make very much. But I do think people are kind of consumed with, what do I get out of everything? And so that's a difficult thing to kind of work through because, can you do the right thing for people in a world that is so self-focused? I believe you can. I believe you can. I can give you illustrations from work where I've had to deal with people that weren't performing well, but because I questioned them about enough things at the outset of the discussion. One instance, I found out a girl's mom was dying of cancer, and she was sideways, mentally, emotionally. She was just distraught, and I asked her if I could share that with other people at work because she had not shared it with anybody, and she said, I need to think about that. And then she came back to me about 4 days later and she said, why would you want to share that? I said, because I'd like people to help you, just like I want to help you. And so she said, okay. So I shared it with several other people at work and they said, we'll do her work and she can stay home with her mom on those days she's got treatment. And we don't want anything for that. We'll just do her work. We'll make sure it all gets done. We'll stay later, come in earlier, whatever we need to do. And so those are the magnificent things that happen in life sometimes when you're really searching and seeking to be a giver. And I do believe God truly wants us to be that. That's I think it's an epic element of our faith.
Once again, been listening to I Am Refocused Radio and watching this online. I would say in closing, because this was a good episode for me to just kind of sit back and listen. I would say everything you said ties back to earlier when you said um, about your grandmother when she wrote your name on the paper bag for
Mhm.
lunch, and how you took care of that and neatly put it back into together because you wanted to keep something positive memory wise.
Mhm.
How that is uh, in life, God gives you something with your name on
Mhm.
it, and we don't always know how valuable it is until it's gone.
Right.
And that's the most uh, interesting about that. You learn how to appreciate things usually when it's almost time up.
Yeah.
And what from that is embrace the moment. Just like you said, Napoleon, what a shame it would be for not being ready and prepared for the moment that can be your greatest moment. But if you're not ready because of your choices, you may just lose that moment of opportunity. I always say that in the show a lot of times is that we have so much time.
That's right.
That window, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And if we're not careful, one day it's completely shut. So when we embrace that moment, you took the time to take that paper bag, but not just one, multiple, and have it nice and neat. To her from outside, different perspective, it was like, what in the world? Why would you keep these? But from your perspective, you knew the value of what she gave to you. And so I had to just emphasize that because that made me think about, God gives us our value with our name on it. And if we don't be careful, we will spend our whole life ignoring that value. And if we're not careful, we will lose that whole window of time.
Yeah. I have a great quote by a guy named Michelangelo Galliero. He's a famous toy maker in the early 1900s, and I actually went to his toy shop when I was in Europe visiting. But he had a great quote, and it was carved out of wood above his workbench there. Build as if to last 1,000 years. Live as if to die tomorrow. And I thought, man, that is so crucial, right? That every moment I have today could be the last one. But I want to do things that impact eternity, right? I don't just want to do things that are good for today or good for tomorrow. And yeah, I get stuck on quotes because once they get embedded here, right? I think the early thing my grandma tried to help me understand was life is neither good or bad, but thinking makes it so, right? You have two people collecting trash, and one's just miserable as all get out, and the other one's whistling Dixie all day long, right? And it's just a choice, right? Those are just choices. So, um, yeah,
Yeah,
we all have a time and a place and a purpose and a plan, and God's behind all that, and just
that's
want
what
to
I
fulfill.
would say is since you like quotes, there's a quote that I kept, I wrote down, put in my wallet, and it was in my wallet all through college. And I discovered it when I was in high school. And it was by Blaise Pascal.
Oh,
And,
awesome, great guy.
and he said, in faith, there's enough light for those who want to believe, but also enough shadows to blind those who don't.
Mm,
When I first read it in high school, I was just like, man, what in the world does that even mean? Because it's so much information in such a short, statement. And the more I read it, the more I learned something new because it's true. I mean, a remix version is Henry Ford, you think you can or you can't, you're right. So that's like the watered down version. But the
right.
Blaze Pascal version is basically no matter what situation comes your way in life, it's like faith. There's enough light to get you through, or there's enough shadows for you to be distracted by and
Mm,
miss your opportunity. So again, to your point, if you're not prepared and you're not ready for the moment, it's part because someone is distracting you and you're allowing it to have your full attention.
Exactly.
So with that said, I love when shows like this, episodes are unique. Threw my questions out the window. We didn't have no need for that. I always tell people, I never fight that because you might have missed the moment. Mm-hmm. So after doing this for all these years, you learn to let the moment take care of itself. Because to your point, all the mentors you wrote about in your book, that wasn't by chance. That was by design.
Absolutely.
And people are so worried sometimes about how life will pan out. Well, you can't control the world, but you can control your choice. And when you put that out, life seems to open its own doors for you. I know that firsthand. Tell people all the time, won't bore them right now, but they heard my story about the barbershop 1,000 times. Mm-hmm. But to the context of this show message, there were a lot of moments in the beginning of this show. And if I would have missed those moments early on in 2017 through 2019 and 2020, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people I would be sitting talking to, but time and chance, we never control what happens outside of us, but we 100% control what happens within us.
Absolutely.
And that's our choice. Everything else is an opportunity to appreciate. And when we think about memories, when you think about the best memories of life, I mean, you started the show with some of the most tragic memories. But it's amazing how those tragic moments can lead us to our best moments. And what I mean by that is you could have spent your whole life giving up. Mm-hmm. And said, I deserve it. I mean, you should hear my story. Let me tell you again. Let me tell you again.
Right.
Instead, you use it as an opportunity to give to others. And when Dad says all the time, you give water into someone's life, you end up watering into your own life. So giving, everything you said about design, God's design, the sun, the water, all this stuff, everything is bigger than itself as far as purpose. Mm-hmm. Nothing is for yourself. We're not even designed as humans to be that. We're always serving, giving, work, career, business. So we have to ask ourselves, had this one person on who talked about, she was going through the most deep, dark places of her life. She looked in the mirror and she told herself, we're going to get through this. She said she spoke life, even though in the moment she was in her darkest space. Mm-hmm. I think that's powerful when you understand that when you're able to recognize this is either a point to change direction or is a point of no return. It's heavy. Mm. But when you're able to make that choice to make the point of a new direction, that's when life opens. It's like from the chaos. And when I hear that said from her story, and now I hear it from your story, I'm telling you, when you said what you said about the paper bag with your name on it, it's like, wow. God put his name on that bag through his grandma to let him know you're valuable. Mm-hmm. And think about that. What was in that bag? Food.
Food of life.
We can go days and all in on that point alone, but it's funny how metaphors can just teach us a lot, but usually it goes through lessons of pain.
Mm-hmm.
Pain can either destroy you or it can build you.
That's right.
If you're not careful, you lose all the moments because you allow pain to destroy you. Pain is temporary, but it doesn't mean your choice has to be the wrong one, because your choices are permanent and it can never be taken back. So when you understand that pain is necessary for growth, then you learn to embrace it so you can get to the next stage, because that's your foundation. It's not the spotlight. Spotlight only reveals what's already been there the whole time. And with that said, how can people get a copy of your book, man?
So I'm online. They can hit me at Facebook. They can hit me on LinkedIn. I do have a website, New Dimensions INTL Co. is what it is, and so I got some stuff on there. I'm on Pinterest. I haven't really been propagating it much. There's, it's kind of strange. I know the book has meaning and value to people who are in need. I know that for a fact. I've had some people contact me already and say, this gave me insight and hope to something I didn't think I had any hope for, right? So I know there's value in that way, but I've got a great aunt that's 99 years old, and my wife run out to take care of her about weekly, and so it's end of the day, God's got a plan here. So, and I'm open and patient and willing and waiting. But all I've chosen to do, I'm semi-retired. I'm helping out at a couple of colleges and doing some mentoring. Started a mentoring program at our church. But I'm open to helping facilitate people's success. I've done a lot in my career, fulfilled a lot of different roles. God just gave me opportunities left and right, and so I'm willing to help people. And I say in the book, if you contact me, I'll get back to you, and I will. And I'm not looking to. I'm looking to help people. I'm looking to give. Right. I mean, that's all I want to do. So I've got a student that I mentored at Biola University who is from the Czech Republic, and we Zoom now to the Czech Republic, or he Zooms to America, whatever. But it's just very rewarding. I mean, I know he appreciates the discussions, and I'm wide open to try and help him and encourage him and find a greater way to bring glory and honor to God. And that happens in every element of our life and every phase of our life. There's opportunities for that. So yeah.
Iron sharpens iron. So
yep.
That's a whole nother 30-minute conversation. But to wrap this up, I would say those who are listening to I Am Refocused Radio and watching us online, make sure you go support, get his book. Might have to have him back on in the future. But until then, like I always want to say to you, Mark, thank you for your time, man.
Thank you. It's been an honor and privilege.